over here. Hello, welcome. I guess this is my first sort of tutorial, and also partially a devlog, and more like, well, not really a devlog, more like you're joining me while I make some assets for the game. So as you might know from my previous videos, I'm currently in a game jam, a mini game jam, with the, oops, I cracked my fingers and that was kind of loud. If I can learn how to speak, I would finish this video. Anyways, the game jam's theme is ancient, and as you can see here, have some items for the game, and these are sort of loot drops that the player can get. Mostly we have, as you can see, we have like a duplicate, but they have this little icon here. So this bone, skull, and spine, these belong to this Bronchiosaurus right here. And they're separate from this spine, skull, and bone that belong to this Stegosaurus. The Stegosaurus also has a spike, but it's kind of like his special own separate item. The Bronchiosaurus, maybe we could have given him one, but I think I'll just make his spine worth a little bit more or something, since he has a massive one. Anyways, I'll show you guys how to make these little icons, as well as maybe make some item like this. I've decided that, of course, we have two great dinosaurs here. Another very well-known one, in fact, probably the most well-known one out there, is the T-Rex. So we'll make a little T-Rex icon that goes here with the bone, the skull, and the spine. And we'll also make a new, like, large sprite like this one, that I guess can be its hands, since it's well known for its tiny little hands and arms. So first, let's duplicate this frame with the bone, and we're gonna zoom in here, and we're gonna get rid of this little Stegosaurus. Don't worry, he's still on this frame. Oops, he's still on this frame, so we still have him. But this time we're gonna change our little color here to a sort of brown. And let me just check. Okay, so we're gonna change our color here to this little brown. Sorry, I had to check if I was still recording. I forgot if I was or not. And also, I'm using Piscal here, that's how you spell it, for making sprites. It's free, it's easy to use, and you can make animations on it as well, but I'm using it just for these icons. But if you do have an animation, you can turn up the frames for a second, I'll flip through them, and even turn on onion layer just to see what's behind you. We're going to set this to 0 just so it's not distracting, and we're going to turn off onion layer since we don't need it. Most T-Rexes that you see in fiction, since you can't really see one in real life, and I hope we won't, because if we do, I don't think we're surviving that. Most of them, or most T-Rexes, are depicted as either greenish, maybe a blue, or deep brown. So we're going to stick with the latter one, which is deep brown. And we're going to start making him up here. So first, actually, we're going to make a box. Now, the reason why I like making these boxes is so that we kind of have a boundary of how big or how small these guys can be. If they're too big, then it's not really like a little icon in the corner, and you spent too much time on it instead of something big like this that can be reused. So in a game jam where you have limited time, this is something that might be beneficial. If you have a lot of time though, and you do want your game to look like tip-top condition, it'll look a little bit nicer if you make a small icon like this really detailed. But because it's pixel art, it'll get compressed down really small, especially in games, and most people will just pass it off as nothing. So unless if your game is really detail oriented, I wouldn't spend all that much time on the small things, and more on the big things like this that a player will see and they'll be like, oh, that's good, and then see what's attached to it and be like, oh, it's a little bit better, or a little bit worse. On a frame bloom, we'll go back to the brown and make it a little bit deeper. More like a leathery brown, I guess. and we'll start shaping this guy. So we'll start here, kind of in back. I'll say this is like the tail. T-Rexes kind of have this thick, thin tail at the end, but thicker towards the middle, which makes sense, I guess. And we'll use this line tool to make the back of the T-Rex. Go down a little bit here, and then this is where the head would be. So mapping out a silhouette here for our T-Rex. This right here will be his head, and then we'll give him sort of like a stomach here. What you could do to make this is use your circle tool, and sort of do something like this to get the circle shape. And I'm actually going to keep that. I think it adds a little bit more to the corners. And then from there you can use your line tool and make a line here. This is a really good technique if you're starting out. So like it'd be here, and same thing here. Same line. And if you go from here to up here, you get a very similar one up here. This is a really good technique for whenever you're starting out to making your sprites by using the circle tool and the stroke tool, or the straight line tool, or whatever you want to call it, to make sort of a outline or a skeleton, is how some people call it whenever you're making art. If you like to sketch or draw, you've probably heard that term if you've looked it up or something. Anyways, then we fill it up here with the fill tool, and we got our silhouette, sort of. We're gonna even this guy out a little bit in these areas, and over here too. So now we got his body, and we'll give him some legs here before we give him his notorious tiny baby arms. And give us a little bit more room for those arms too by getting rid of these 2 pixels. When you're making something small like these, 1 or 2 pixels can be the difference between it looking very convoluted and looking just right. So it's good to plan ahead a little bit. So I'm thinking we add the arms over here and the legs down here. So T-Rex sort of has like a circular leg at the top, kind of. It's weird. It kind of like goes in and out, kind of like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a stroke tool. Use a stroke tool and move it back a little bit, and then move it front here at the end. Go here, go up here, and it looks like he has a boot. So we're gonna cut this piece off, and thicken it here, and give it a little bit of a bump in the back. And there, I think that's a decent looking leg. I think if we add that, it looks a little too thick at the top, and I think we should keep this here. So here we have a leg. I think I'll keep it like that. I might actually bring him down a little bit so that the leg isn't as tall. By the way, the box doesn't have to be like the ground. It's just a coincidence that I brought it down this much. And if you do end up using something like a box, you don't always have to stay within the bounds. You can make it a little bit smaller or bigger, but it's just like a general suggestion. I might take this wall over here down, just to give me a little bit more leeway whenever I make the face. So next we're going to give him a back leg. Actually, first we'll do the arm. Go down here, and we're going to kind of give him like small T-Rex arms. There's no other way of putting it. I'm actually probably going to have to use a different color. So maybe we'll start with the leg. So I'll show you guys how I think, or how I make my shading. Here we have your base color, and your base color should be sort of in this like middle area where I'm circling with my mouse, so that you can make it lighter or darker. Now, whenever you're making things darker, you could also move your slider up here closer to the red, and it gives it more of a brighter, or more like a deeper tone. Or no, oh yeah, like a brighter tone. So never mind, that's for light, sorry. If you want to make it darker, then you move it down towards the blue, and it gives it like a colder, cool shade looking effect. Now I'm going to keep it simple here for this sprite so that we don't spend too much time messing around with the colors. If you're using like a teal like for the Stegosaurus, it is beneficial to go down a bit more, since if you have a teal, it kind of just turns blue. So you move down to the green and it keeps it in the in-between ratio. So we're gonna move this down here diagonally, sort of to the bottom right, and it gives us a darker color that we can use for shading, like that. I'm gonna get rid of that first. So this is gonna be like where his other leg would be. So we're gonna go here, and I don't think it looks too good. I think it makes it look like it's just shading for his other leg. So we'll go give him something like this. We'll copy the same design for the leg, but we're gonna go here, give him the same sort of design like I was saying, and there we go. Kind of got a back leg there. I think it still looks a little bit weird since it's the way it's shaped. So we will press it against the other leg, and we're gonna see how it goes. I think that looks good. I think since I made it a little bit thicker, it gave it the depth it needed to look like a back leg. We're gonna give it that pixel up there. Yeah, I think that pushes it. Yeah, I think that looks really nice. Ooh, really nice. Voice crack. Then using a similar technique, we go up here to more like the top left to get a lighter color. Now, I'm not going to go as high up because then it starts to look really light, and we're not looking for it to be too light. So whenever you go into the bottom right, you might want to go a little bit more so that you can really distinct against the darkness, the darker colors. And with the lighter colors and the lighter tones, it's a lot easier to differentiate them. So we'll keep it to this lighter color, or so you don't have to slide it as far down. We have his little T-Rex arms. It's gonna look a little derpy, but that's kind of the whole theme with these. See, I think this is too light, even though we barely went up anything. That's not light enough. I think we'll keep it that way. This sort of tone. I'm gonna take this dark one, lighten it up a little bit, and do something similar. We're gonna go here. Yeah, I think actually he just should have one arm. I think the other one would be too small to be able to see. Now let's go up here. And since these guys are kind of derpy, just give them plain black eyes like this. And there's the main T-Rex. I think we should give him a little bit of shading here. So we're going to take this dark color, and if you think about it, his leg wouldn't just like go from there. It'd be kind of like folded, if that makes sense. It'd be like a fold for his leg. So we're going to mess around with how this looks. And there we go. See, now, I think if we move this down one. There you see, he's got like his leg fold with this darker tone. And then make the underside of his tail darker as well. Yeah, it looks a little strange though. We might keep it this color just because it's so thin. And we'll go with a lighter tone instead for the top. I think that gives it the right contrast it needs. I think that's too much if we add the corners. Oops. Sometimes whenever you do things like this with the shading, you might want to add the corners like this so that it's all connected and not diagonal. But for the smaller sprites, I think the diagonal looks better. It makes our shading look smaller, which is good for smaller sprites. And also just a little bit less convoluted, if that makes sense. We're going to keep the head shape how it is actually. And we're not going to give him an expression that's too crazy. So we're going to get rid of this box. And we have our little T-Rex guy. That's like a smaller sprite. So now, since we're using Piscal, we're going to duplicate these with which is made really easy by just pressing that one button. I'm sure that other sprite makers software, the real sprite software, has a similar feature, but I like Pascal's personally. So we're gonna get rid of these Stegosauruses here, and whichever software you prefer to use, you go ahead and use it. Like, if you have one that you're like, oh, I really like this one, you don't have to change up Pascal to do any of this. Really, the software doesn't matter as much as the person who's making the sprites. You have a lot of experience, and of course it's going to look nicer than someone who doesn't. Like me, these look subpar, in my opinion. They could be better, but they could also be worse, how they were when I started. Here, also with Pascal, I like how it makes a silhouette whenever you're copying and pasting things. So we add it to all these sprites, and now we have a new set. And actually, T-Rex here doesn't have any of these little whatever these are called on the Stegosaurus. I'm not a dinosaur nerd. I know a lot of people, whenever they're younger, go through a dinosaur phase. I went through a stargazing phase. I forgot the name. I'm blanking on it. I'm sorry. Thanks to that, I can instead identify a bunch of different constellations in the sky and tell you the stories behind them. Anyways, back to sprite making instead of me speaking about life. We're going to make T-Rex arms, I guess. Let's make a new sprite here. And we're going to take this black color. Actually, I didn't have to go back here to get the color. Just 0, 0, 0, 0 in the corner. Alright, so first, let's start off with the shape. So we're going to want his arm. So we're going to have like a square here, or a rectangle. Then we're going to have like the joint, which would be like a circular area. And then another square for like where the fingers would go. Then we take this line tool, kind of cut it here. I think this is too small actually. We have a lot of room here. It's a 64 by 64 area, might as well use more of it. Once again, make this rectangle. Make yourselves a nice circle. Joint. And then we're going to use a rectangle. Since, you know, whenever you think of a T-Rex arm, it's kind of flopped down. And we'll give it this little like chip here, and this is where like finger bones will go. We're gonna go up here. We're gonna take this peachy color, which or cream color, which is like a really pale yellow, and we're gonna fill in the sprite with it. Now I know that bones kind of aren't welded together like this, so we'll add in details like we did here, where like it's got empty spaces in it. We'll add that later on down the line. So really quick, we're just gonna fill this in, and as you can see here, we have this like area where instead of it being diagonally like I don't really know what to call this, but as you can see here, it's like diagonal, and there's no blank spaces here, so they're not like little steps. We're going to stay consistent with that up here. We're going to get rid of these. And I think this just makes a sprite look a little bit cleaner and makes it look like you gave it a little bit of an extra flair. Of course, here in these corners, we're going to keep it like this because they're meant to be sharp corners. But in these rounder bits, I think it's nicer if you have it like this, because they look less abrupt, if that makes sense. So now we're going to take our rectangle tool again and give it a black and start making its sort of fingers. Now we're going to have these actually disconnected, because think of this as like a fossil, since that's what it's supposed to be in the game. And we're going to give the last one over here. we're gonna get rid of these over here and give it this color. That looks a little weird. These fingers. We're gonna get rid of these and we're gonna remake these in a different way. Never be afraid to restart parts of your sprites. You're not always gonna get it on the first try, so have some patience when you're making them. I think it's because a T-Rex. A T-Rex doesn't have fingers like a person. That has more like claws. I think that's where I got messed up on. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the circle tool. We're gonna do a little trick here. So if you want like a curve, you can take the circle tool and make a circle. And you might be thinking, well, that's just a circle. That's not gonna help you out. Well, if you take your eraser or your pen and make the one transparent, give you this curve. Now I could have easily done this just going dunk, 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 and giving it a different one that's very similar, but I think I find it a little bit easier just to make it like this, just so that it's easier to envision, since you can make it as big or small as you like before placing it down and making it permanent on there. So you don't have to spend as much time going, do I want it like this size, or do I want it a little bit bigger? So using your circle tool, and just any tool in general in different ways, makes sprite making a bit easier. So we're going to make these actually a little bit bigger. I know I just said that made it easier to envision, but I'm going to contradict myself a bit. And then we're going to give it a sharp nail. We're going to go up here and end it off there. So it doesn't look too clawed, so we're going to go here, here, and just get it back there, and there. So now I got like a sharper claw. There we go, I think that's better. Yeah, now we got a sharper claw than we did before. Makes it a lot nicer than the rectangle. The rectangles that we had. And we're just going to copy and paste this. Our Lord and Savior copy paste saves us a game. And we're going to do the same thing here. And I think 3 times should be enough for this. What we're going to do is we're going to make this one over here a little bit smaller, since it's the one on the end. We're going to make it a little bit like this. There we go. See, it looks a little bit sharper, but it's still smaller. I'll make this one a little bit different too. I think I like that way of making it sharper like this. This one looks a little bit rounder. And there. I got fingers, and like I said, we're gonna add the empty spaces here. So it's just a gray color mixed with a little bit of red, I think, just to give it a warmer feel. And here we're gonna go take the rectangle tool. We're just gonna go. Let's think about how a hand looks with bones. This part right here would actually be a lot different. This part would be fully round and not just round from one side, because you'd have other things filling the rest. So go here, make this part rounder, and take the gray part, and here on the top we're just going to have bits of gray. Now I don't actually know what a dinosaur hand would look like in the slightest, so we're just gonna wing it really. And hopefully if we do this right, it'll look good anyways. Over here we have this kind of like separated. We're gonna make another curve. So we're gonna go here. See, the bigger the curve that you need will be. Get makes it a bit easier to see like this. We got this right here. We're gonna thicken it by 1. Add this right here. And we're going to finally round this off here too. I think I don't like it how it's abruptly stopping. Use a bucket tool. And oh, I didn't mean to get rid of that line. Meant to take the black color. And I'm using middle mouse button. It's mapped to where it's like an auto color picker. And go there. And adding on, finally, with the fingers, that color. Oops. Oh, my chair moved. It's made a lot of noise for some reason. Taking this color, I use the same method. See this same, like, similar pale color. And to get this darker color up here, take this, and we're going to add some shading here. Nothing too crazy, just go here and there. On the bones, making it look a little bit more ancient, since that's the theme. And if you think about how bones are, they kind of have like lines like on a chicken bone. They kind of have like lines like this. So we're going to add those onto this right here. Kind of leading from one end to the other. And there, it gives it this sort of feel. We're going to get rid of this one right here. And yeah, I think that's about it. I'm going to copy and paste the T-Rex from up here. It's going to be easier to use a lasso selection. Copy this guy and put him down here on his hand. And we have our next item here. It doesn't look the best. I like the skull a lot better. But at the same time, you can't really spend too much time on these sprites. So I hope that this helped at least a little bit with picking out your shading colors and using your tools in different ways. If you enjoyed the video, learned something, or just anything in general, and you want to give me a little bit of thanks, then like the video, leave a comment, or just interact with it. Whenever, or here since I'm starting out, it would really help encourage me to keep posting a little bit more. But thank you for watching, and I hope you look forward to whenever this game comes out on itch.io. Thanks for watching.